First of all, thank you for the interview. The first question is Loot 2.0. It was introduced at Wednesday. What can we expect? Can you tell us anything apart from the things we saw at the presentation?
Can we take that? Sure. Okay. So Loot 2.0 essentially has a lot of different elements to it, only a few of which we're showing so far. So what we've unveiled so far is that there's smart drop system, a targeted drop system, and the most important thing is that there's fewer, better items. So in many cases, people will say that more is not better, better is better, and that's sort of the approach we're taking here. So overall, there's just fewer items moving through your inventory, and the fact that many of them are smart drops targeted at your class makes it more likely that you will find upgrades for yourself. And then supporting features to that is we have a new enchanting system as well. The Mystic is our new artisan, and she has two systems, transmogrification, which is character customization, and enchanting. Enchanting allows you to re-roll any given stat on an item and then hope that you can get something better for your class. If you get something that's almost good enough, you can take another shot at it or two and keep going on that. Transmog, we have so many different armor looks for characters. All the classes in both genders, there's hundreds and hundreds of pieces of armors for them, and we're adding more. And people tend to equip whatever is the most powerful thing for their character and makes them the most awesome, but it doesn't necessarily look like that they want us to look like. So we're allowing them to change the appearance of all of their armor and their weapons, and so anything they've picked up, they can use that as well. So those are some of the Loot 2.0 features.
Okay, thank you. Next question. The auction house was one big topic in the past. It still is, especially the real money auction house. Are you happy with the real money auction house so far? And can you tell us something about the future of the real money auction house?
So this answer actually ties into the Loot 2.0 question, and Loot is one of the things we use to deal with the issue of the auction house. So the question is, are we happy with the real money auction house? And with real money and with the gold auction house, I don't think we're happy with how influential they've been on the game, how much people use them or how much people feel that they need to use them. So the core fantasy of Diablo game or any loot-based game is that you kill a monster and you pick up the loot, and you've earned that yourself by destroying that monster, and that's the best way to get it. Trading or buying items is not invalid, but that should be used to fill in holes in the loot system. A good example of this working correctly would be, I found 4 out of 5 pieces of a set, and I just can't find that 5th piece. I do get an opportunity to buy it eventually. That's a good thing. Most of the time, though, you should be killing monsters. Loot 2.0 is trying to make sure that the items that you need and want, you find by killing monsters, which is more fun, and we want to make that the most efficient way to do it. So that's one of the ways that we're trying to balance the auction house issue.
Next question is about PvP. Actually, this topic wasn't really touched, I think, with the new expansion. Can we still expect any changes? Are there any intentions to change the current PvP system?
Sure. Well, PvP is something that we would love to have, right? I think everyone who works on the team would love to have PvP in the game. In Diablo, it's very hard to figure out how to take a class that is designed to kill very, very fast and pit it against another class that is designed to kill very fast, right? So if you are on the receiving end of that, it's not going to be a very fun experience for you, right? So there's a lot of challenges there, and it's something that we are still talking about and thinking about and trying to figure out how to implement. So it's not, it's definitely something that we're thinking about, but we're not announcing anything particular about PvP at this time.
A simple question, why the Crusader for the new expansion? Were there considerations for other new classes, or was that always your first and only choice?
It wasn't the only choice. It was our first, and it ended up winning out, I think, pretty easily. We don't tend to talk about other potential classes because there's always the future, right? So I won't tell you what didn't win. But the Crusader, I think, was an easy win for both the setting that we chose, for the fact that the villain in the game is the Angel of Death. And so this is like another good evil story that we have here. And it's always been about demons before. The fact that we have Malthael, who is an angel. Previously, you've been allied with the angels through Tyrael. Malthael doesn't believe in that. He thinks that humanity is inherently flawed, and he intends to wipe it all out and clear the slate. The Crusader, a holy warrior, You know, this is in Holy Warrior versus an Angel is interesting in and of itself, and a warrior driven by wrath. The fantasy there, the story fantasy is pretty obvious. That's just an interesting matchup. The fantasy of what makes him awesome to play, heavy armor. We don't have a lot of that in the game yet, so the idea for us was that it was like a tank in human form. I say a war machine made human, or a siege engine made human. Like, what would happen if a tank from modern times was actually on a medieval battlefield? Well, we're not going to do that, but we can put that in human form. So the big armor, and the interesting thing about tanks is that the armor is part of their weaponry, and that's where the shield comes in as well. So his armor from his shield calculates into his damage to get, you know, down into the details of it. So the more, you know, armor he has, the more damage he does. He likes to be right in the center of things. So it's a very neat class. It stands out from the other melee classes because of the mid-ranged holy abilities as well. So it fills a slot that we didn't have filled yet in our lineup of classes.
The next question is about skills. We've seen some skills from the Crusader already. What about the other classes? What skills can we expect on level 70 characters or on the way there? Can you give us any preview, or what do you intend to do with that?
We won't preview any skills, I'm afraid. Sorry. Doesn't hurt to ask, right? Other than to say that there is new skills, new runes, new passives, new equipment, and lots of other new things for the existing classes. I already alluded to the fact that there's a lot of new armor and appearances, new tiers of items, etc. All the classes are getting unique legendary items as well. So we love those classes, all of us, of course. That's our characters right now, so we want to do right by them.
Then a follow-up question to this, the already existing skills, are there any intentions to change anything there, or are you happy how they are? Are there any plans?
Yeah, there are some plans to work on existing skills as well. Any work we do on the skills, like all of the skills we have for the classes, we're happy with the ideas behind them. That's why they became the primary skills. Ideas that are cool but aren't good enough or not quite right or very specialized, those tend to become runes or tend to be discarded, but not all of the skills are balanced well. And our goal with editing existing skills is to increase build diversity, to give people more options to play. People will gravitate towards whatever's most powerful. We want people to be able to have multiple different options, different builds for their characters that can be powerful. So we do a lot of work to try to bring up the power or to add coolness, interesting tactics, whatever it is that a skill needs to make it interesting. So we are looking at that, yeah.
Another question about the loot runs. Now with the loot runs, what happens with the old content, so to say? For example, Act 1, 2, 3, 4. Once you finish the game so far, is there any reason for players still to replay these acts, or will the loot run be the new endgame?
Get that, or?
Yeah, sure. No, there's definitely reasons to replay the game. So a lot of the endgame features that we're adding, like loot runs, are one of a number of options that you have after you've killed Malthael. So certainly replaying the game is not only perfectly valid, but there's a lot of good reasons to do it. So there's any number of reasons to go back into the game and play through again. And particularly in Act 5, we're going to have randomized exteriors. So the replayability of Act 5 itself is actually quite high.
A question about the gold inflation. Are there any plans for measures to prevent it, or how do you want to fight it? Do you want to fight it at all?
As we increase power and as the economy works longer, it works a lot like real-world economies, frankly. There's always going to be some inflation. Yes, it's valuable for us to fight it to some degree, but the fact that, you know, this isn't real life, we're not trying to balance complicated real-world economies, we're trying to balance complicated artificial economies whose goal is fun, not survival, right? The real world is about surviving, getting people enough to eat, you know, shelter, things like that. Ours is about getting epic loot to kill epic monsters, so our methods of that are different. So having too much gold and being able to buy anything at all, there's a few different ways you can deal with that. You can make some of the things unbuyable, as in you just can't spend gold on them. You have to go and earn them in the world. That's one element. You can also try to find more things for people to spend money on that are not necessary. You know, we don't want the rich to get richer necessarily, but we want people to have satisfying places to spend their gold. So we work on things like that. Enchanting is one of those things. You don't need to use it, but you can. Crafting can be just one element of that.
One question about the leveling from 60 to 70. how much can we expect in time for this? How long will it take for a player to reach level 70?
That's still being adjusted, so we haven't quite figured that out yet. The interesting thing to note, I guess, would be, again, without being that specific, is that we're trying to find more options to level up between 60 and 70 than just playing the story mode over and over again. So we are working on variety in that leveling experience.
So as a follow-up, by finishing the new content in the expansion, you're not automatically level 70. So is that planned that you're supposed to be level 70, or what's your intentions with that?
The intention is that we'll drive people towards some of our new endgame options. Loot Run is just one of the things that we're working on for the endgame, and the short version of the intent behind it is variety. So I don't think that in the current Diablo game there's not enough variety that people feel like they can do. There's lots of things to do in the story and lots of different challenges to take on. People want to do the one that is most efficient. Not everybody, but most people. So we're trying to find multiple ways of making efficiency be valid throughout all the much different content we have in all the different systems and a variety of ways of playing the game, not just a variety of monsters to kill.
Console version of the expansion. Will it be the same release time? What are the plans for this? Will there be a console version of the expansion?
Well, so basically, we have not yet released Diablo 3 on console, and we have not yet released Reaper of Souls on PC. So, so it's a bit early to speculate. So we don't know yet for sure. We would certainly love to, but we have to sort of focus on the things that are in front of us right now, and then see in time.
One question about a rumor that has been on some forums. There's a rumor about endless dungeons. Endless dungeons as in monsters getting progressively harder and harder as you play. Do you think that's a good concept? Is that something we can expect maybe?
That rumor is probably my fault. Because I've described loot runs as something like endless dungeons. Whenever I said that, I tried to be clear. It's just a semantics issue. Endless dungeons are ones that you can play forever with randomness. That's how I meant it. Some people look at endless dungeons to be the same as what I've referred to as bottomless dungeons, which is you just get deeper and deeper and the monsters get harder and harder. Yes, there is room for a concept like that. Loot runs is about variety, and it is endless in that you can just do loot run after loot run. And at this point, we have already made millions of combinations. Mathematically, all the different monsters, all the different tile sets, and all the different bosses. There's a lot of variety in there. So that's what we're working on currently.
One question about the Enchantress. We already seen the Enchantress in the beta. At least it was planned to be in the game in the beta. Apart from transmog, will it be the same artisan? Did you have a lot of changes with the Enchantress, or is it pretty much the same as we saw in the beta?
This Enchantress, the enchanting that she was going to do back during the Diablo 3 beta, we found that it was better done by the jeweler and the blacksmith's existing systems and by some of the item systems we already had. And when we were trying to fix that, we were trying to give her other things to do. It simply wasn't rich enough. Like we talked about having her system be the dye system, and we figured that's not good enough. All she does is dye your armor. Now that we have transmog and that's only one of the things she does, now that's a valid character customization thing, right? So we actually had her completely recorded. She was ready to go in the game. We just didn't feel like she was needed. One of the best things about design, when you're making a game and you've made all of your content, you've gotten to what most people call alpha stage, you have it all in there, sometimes the magic starts to come out when you start cutting stuff. You boil it down, you condense it, you take away the stuff that's weaker. Some people go for everything. If we can put it in, we will. We don't approach it that way. If it has a distinct role that makes it different from other things, it should go in. The Talisman was another system we had in vanilla. We cut that. We might bring that back in the future as well. But what it did, those charms, were better handled by either item affixes or gems, and as such, it just would have been like a different version of the same thing, and therefore it just adds confusion without adding value.
Okay, I think that's our last question. What about the beta? Can we expect it soon? When we will get our hands on the new expansion?
When it's ready. We don't have a release date yet. We're definitely working hard on it, and we would love to get it to you as soon as possible. But it's got to be ready.
Well, thank you very much for the interview. I think we're done here.